fine art. What about it? Modern art. Now, here's the thing. When I hear, what I find particularly interesting about modern art is the fact that it's not truly modern in what most people consider modern. Now, when you say the word modern, you're thinking about what is most modern, so present. So, current art movements in what's considered the newest art forms is actually digital art when you think about it. But because that's the newest art, right? But the thing is about it is that it's the style of it is more similar to older art forms. However, the thing is that it also brings something new to the table because the art styles are new. You don't see the super hyper realism, and yet it's not quite cartoony either. No, digital art has a great deal of variation, but if we're taking a look at the type of art you'd see in a comic book, which is a very popular style among digital artists such as myself, it's not quite cartoony, and yet it's not quite the realism. And even the sorts of cartoons that sold action figures back in the 80s and whatnot, they were still more realistic than a lot of these digital artists, which kind of are almost gestural. Now, all of that said, you might be getting, I'm kind of losing your audience. Now I'm going to rip on some modern art. So the thing is a lot of times, I just watched this Vox video about white paintings, and there's that S on there because, and they had this curator talking about, there's that like people say, oh, I could do that. Well, you didn't. But the thing is that there's more than one from more than one artist. So that quip goes away because the thing is that people have done this. It's a thing that lots of people have seen this idea and then done it. So multiple people are paying multiple other people to do this same basic bullshit. And there's lots of people who have talked about how the fine art movement and fine art and whatever is a scam. It's a freaking pretentious, fraudulent, blah 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 blah. Adam Ruins Everything had a thing about it. Whatever. So, but the thing is that unlike a lot of artists who struggle to get paid, so digital artists, for example, because digital art is not considered real art, they are getting paid millions for hardly any work. Whereas with a digital artist, you need to actually have skill. You need to have knowledge. You need to have ability. Like, for example, me, a digital artist, I had to study classical art. I needed to study anatomy. I needed to study perspective and all sorts of stuff that went with that. And when it comes to like layout drawing, oh my god, I hated layout class so much. Like, because there's 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, there's even 4-point perspective. How things are going to interact in an environment based on the perspective of the eye, and then how to draw something round when your perspective lines are straight, and all sorts of stuff like this. And the angle that you're looking at something, what you're looking at, how that's going to change your perspective lines, and all this other stuff. And then you do actually have to study anatomy. My life drawing class was anatomical study, from the skeleton to the tendons to the muscles, like everything, even how different, and we had to study how fat and different types of fat tissue looks. So stuff like breast tissue versus how breast tissue works, because a lot of people can't draw boobs and that drives me nuts. But even like how that would be different than fat on the face and all this, etc., etc., etc. And I mentioned gestural, and the whole like how to push a movement, because the thing is that when you're dealing with a still image and you want to show that there is a movement happening, you could just draw the movement happening, but to really emphasize the movement and all this other stuff, like there's so much that goes into it when you're just even talking about the simple sketch. You're not even into the final piece yet. You're just talking about the sketch, what goes under the piece. Even just the structural drawing and all this other stuff that goes underneath it. And then you got to go on the computer. And a lot of people think, the computer does all the work. No, it does not. And also, you have to learn a program. You have to completely be familiar with this, computer program. And you have to learn all the different ins and outs of that. And also, it might be easier to do it on digital art because it's more forgiving. But that's, even, but the thing is that you have to have a much steadier hand. There are stabilizers, yes, but unfortunately, I have not figured out the stabilizer because I've had some faulty software, and also, well, some people have tried to figure it out, but I have some faulty software. Anyways, I'm super poor to get the proper downloads. Also, I got a fucked up download when I was in school by accident. It was some sort of glitch. Anyways, so having to figure that out, and also you're still doing the art. You're still drawing it. You're still, having to do all the different layers of line art and color and shading and all in tone and all this other stuff. So there's a lot more work. I mean, in this thing, it said that there was more work that goes into a white painting than into a piece of pop art. No, there's a lot more work that goes into a piece of pop art because it has to be recognizable as that pop culture phenomenon. Granted that I remember there's this piece, I think it was like by a fire, that the art gallery, the National Art Gallery in Canada, the one that's in my city, Ottawa, has and it's just giant piece, and apparently it's like super straight line. I was freaking, yeah, that's impressive as fuck, but it's not worth millions of fucking dollars. That's the big thing. You have artists who are putting all this time, effort, and skill into something and struggling to get anyone to consider their art worth anything. There's this constant struggle of, people saying, oh, it'll be great exposure, or, I'm your fan, I'm supporting you should just be giving me free art for no fucking reason. Or even like, oh, I'll pay you, but I'll pay you peanuts instead of what your art's actually worth, and all this other stuff. And it's next to impossible to actually get a solid, secure job in this field. It's always commissions, and nobody wants to pay for commissions. And yet you can get these pretentious assholes. Yeah, I'm gonna call them pretentious assholes. And the thing is that, in that Vox video, they're like, cue the angry people. Like, no, listen, it is a scam. It is actual verifiable bullshit. Because it would be one thing if only one person was like that. Like, you could have done this, but you didn't. That would be one thing. Like I said, if only one person had done it, but several people have done it. The more of something that exists, the less valuable it is. This is just a fact. Like, that's why there's like limited edition stuff is worth way more than something that's commonplace. That's why mass production decreases the cost, because it's just worth less if there's more of it. That's like, even if you look at the history of the ballpoint pen. The early ballpoint pens were super expensive until they figured out how to mass produce them. Now, they're like a few cents each. Now, here's something interesting when it comes to fine art and mass production to further prove how much it's, marked up in terms of worth. Andy Warhol. Now, he's a pop artist. He's not a, whatever the minimalist or whatever the fuck. But he mass-produced his work. He didn't do most of the artwork, which is fucking bullshit. So, he mass-produced it, and yet, it's still worth a shit ton of money. So, that's just inflated cost at that point. And here's the big thing. You are buying these art pieces to decorate your home. When people buy these art pieces for their home, it's decoration. Why are you spending millions of dollars when you can get the exact same artistic effect from just hiring the teenage artist down the street to throw some paint on a canvas? And I'm saying effect because they were showing multiple pieces of the same theme, okay? So, in high school, I could have done that type of art, that genre of art, of white painting, and I could have put all that stuff, those things that they were talking about, when they were talking about how good white paintings are, I could have put all that shit in there as a teenager, even. But there's fucking dogs who do these fucking artworks. So, anyways, so you could have gotten that if you wanted the effect or the aesthetic, but you're paying for the status symbol, and that's the big thing here. Is that if you're not paying for the worth of the art, you're paying for the status symbol. And that's, I guess, the biggest reason why me, as an autistic person, does not understand this crap. So, why you would pay millions of dollars for something that you could just decorate your home with yourself. Like, I always remember seeing like this kind of stuff that people will pay to decorate just as a home decoration, and I wouldn't understand because I'm like I could decorate my home myself with that. I was always the person of like why buy it when you could do it kind of thing. So yeah, and there's oftentimes there's this thing when it comes to autism versus non-autistic of socially driven versus self-driven. So hence why like studies have found that we're less influenced by even marketing and stuff like this. So like uh well we're less likely to buy things we don't need. um and yeah, so like when it comes to status symbols, we're less likely to buy status symbols. We're more likely to buy something because we actually like it or find it useful or interesting or whatever else. We're not going to buy something because it's expensive. We're going to not buy something because it's expensive. We're only going to buy something because it's expensive because it's worth every dollar. So for example, if I had the money, I'm fucking poor as fuck. I'm living in the YMCA. I'm really poor. Anyways, but if I wasn't, if I was quite wealthy, I would spend a shit ton of money on like say a Cintiq. But again, I'm a digital artist. That's worth the money to me. Or I would spend if I buying a big house. I would only buy a big house if because like then I could have extra bedrooms so that I could have a bunch of ferrets because I could have a ferret room instead of having to worry about like a cage or anything like that. I could have a rat room so I could have a bunch of pet rats and stuff like this because I fucking love ferrets and rats. But anyways, but then I could also have a big backyard so I could have a big garden and I could grow a bunch of vegetables, and I love because I love plants. Like I love plants. So like for me, it's all looking at the more practical or personal interest uses of things. And even like if I had a bunch of money, I would, once I've gotten those things out of the way, but even then I wouldn't get like a ridiculous mansion. I would get, a house with a few extra rooms, and, an actual proper backyard. But then I would start like, oh, well, I could finally fund those charity ideas I have in mind, which, I don't want to be like fucking sucking my own dick. Like, look at me, I'm so good. I have these charity ideas that I've been spending my money on. But like, yeah, so yes, I know so many people have ranted about how pretentious and everything else fine art is, but like it's actually provably a scam and actual bullshit. And the fact of the matter is, it is nothing more than a status symbol. I'm rich. See how rich I am? I was able to buy this $1 million painting that's fucking worthless. Thanks for watching.